Okay, sorry about that. So part of what we're going to talk about today is the new challenges that we're all facing as we've had to make a lot of changes. This is obviously a little bit of a new function for us. We've done some virtual meetings, but never hosted them quite to the level that we are. So thanks for your patience and hanging in there with us while we got that little glitch worked through. Worked perfectly on Monday when we had one. So we're all learning, as I'm sure you all are as well, as your work is changing. Thanks again for hanging in with us. So to rewind just real quickly, that's why we're coming together. So we know that a lot's changed for our nonprofit professional world. Probably things are changing in your personal world, and everything's just feeling a little woo out there. And so how do we bring some cohesion and look at next steps for our nonprofits as we navigate through these different times? We want to try to make this as interactive as possible as we can do through a virtual channel. You all that have worked with us for a while know we sort of like the in-person thing, and we really like to put people together in a room and see what comes out of that, and that can be some great things. So we're trying to replicate that in a virtual format. So your participation is going to be really key here. We want to kick it off today with a poll. So first poll going live now. Launching the poll. How are you doing with all of this? Are you loving this change? Bring it on. Maybe you're caught up on your Netflix, so you're sort of ready to get back to normal now. It's a 50-50 ball. Some days I wake up and I'm like, all right, we got this. Other days I wake up going, whoa, I'm not sure what's going on. Then who of you is right there where we were, that we didn't even know we were going to be when we wrote this poll, and there's a mic on my computer for virtual meetings. Who knew? I didn't even know that was a thing. So tell us where you are. These are anonymous. We don't know who actually says what, so just give us some talking points. It'll be going for a couple more minutes or a few more seconds. So if you can get your vote in there, we'll tally those up. I think I was saying before you all could hear me, the chat window is open. So if you've got information to share, either back to us, you can do that privately, or to everyone. I would say by now you all had your fill of Zoom meetings and sort of learning how those work. But feel free to share information or ideas through that chat so that everybody can see those and benefit from those. So we've got, right now we've got 33% of us loving the change, bring it on. 1% sort of caught up on Netflix, ready to get back to normal. 3% saying it's a 50-50 ball, but nobody except us, and I didn't just vote, said that there's a mic on our computer. So glad to see that nobody's just totally overwhelmed and rolling in the, what do we do now place. But we do know from those results, as the 50-50 ball keeps climbing, that's up to 56% of us now. We'll close that poll out. That it is bringing a lot of change and a lot of uncertainty. We've spent days where things literally change by the hour of what that looked like. And so we want to help work through some of that. What has been the biggest impact to your organization in the last week and a half? These may not be all of the areas that you've encountered change in, but what's the biggest? Is it staffing issues, anything personnel related? Whether that's allowing people to work from home, still being open to the public, how you handle volunteers, anything people related? Is it service delivery? How you still carry out your mission? How do you do that effectively? How you meet those needs that people depend on you for? Or is it financial? Is your biggest concern the financial piece? Either grant revenue, fundraising, meeting expenses, all of those uncertainties. So we've got a few more seconds on this poll. Looking like 75% of you most concerned with service delivery, how we carry out those missions, very important. 25% concerned with financial, so that's a big piece for us as well. So we're going to talk about all of those areas. Interestingly enough, that staffing was not the biggest concern, but although it may not be your biggest concern, I'm sure it's still on everybody's mind. So we'll work through those. Those of you that are on our email list, you know, we've sent a couple things out over the last week. We try not to inundate you. If your inbox is anything like mine, it's gone a little crazy this past week with information related to COVID-19, nonprofit specific information, financial information, how we all cope. And so we've tried not to be a part of that overburdening for you, but also want to be there and be a resource and look at how collectively we can do some things together. So we did send out a link to a survey that was conducted by the Kentucky Nonprofit Network. And I know some of you participated in that. We've got some information to share back from it as well. And there were 47 organizations in our region that took this KNN survey, and it was open for about a week. We know that some of those answers will likely have changed by this point since people answered. But at the point people did these surveys last week, the first question was, please estimate the level of impact COVID-19 is having currently on program services or general operations of your organization. As you might expect, no one said little to no impact, but we had over 70% saying significant disruptions. A little over 20% saying moderate disruptions. As we move on and look at the next question, the estimated level of impact COVID-19 is anticipated to have on your programs or services. So the first question was about what kind of impact has it already had? And then next question, what do you anticipate that to be going forward? So with that, nearly everyone talking about significant disruptions, a small percentage was moderate disruptions. And we know that that is representative of the different types of organizations. Our nonprofit world is diverse, lots of organizations working in different spaces. Our third question on the survey centered around how your organization has responded. What kinds of things have you done or are you planning to do in response to the coronavirus? And people could give multiple answers here. So rescheduling or canceling meetings, significant number, changing those meetings to in-person, or changing in-person meetings to virtual meetings, much like what we've done. And we know that that's at a cost, a time cost, maybe a technology cost for organizations. Revisiting or implementing those policies around working from home, updating sick leave policies, encouraging employees to not come into work when they're sick. You know, we're all accustomed to, you know, that try to push through, plow through, do what we need to do to get the job done, but recognizing that we need to set those expectations for our team members, that it's okay to stay home, not just okay that you have to stay home if you're not well. Encouraging more hygiene focus, both personally and then also cleaning and sanitizing of our offices. Things people have done to stay informed via with the virus, either from the CDC or other sources, and then sharing that coronavirus related guidance out either with volunteers, with your staff who may be in contact with folks. So as you can see, most all of those have been embraced by our nonprofits at somewhere at 50% or more. The rescheduling and canceling meetings or changing them from in-person to virtual, huge responses in those areas that we know are the most impactful on our organizations and the work that they're doing. We'll move from that to our fourth question that I wanted to show results with you on, and that's how many months of cash reserves does your organization have on hand? And we know that speaks to the financial impact of limited service delivery to meet deliverables or fundraising events that may be in jeopardy because of these changes. And with that, we see that about 22% of these the organizations who responded to they have less than a month of cash reserve on hand. 42% said 1 to 3 months. So when you look at that, we're looking at over 60% of organizations with 3 months or less of cash reserves on hand. So that's just a little bit of an idea of where our nonprofits are collectively, so that we can talk about what our shared challenges are and where our opportunities are to connect with each other and to help lift our sector up and lift each other up together. And ultimately, we know this isn't just a 2 or 3 week, we get through some social distancing, some quarantine, and then we all go back to normal, which I think may be where folks were thinking early on. And I'll say I was probably guilty of that too. Like, okay, we'll slow down for 2 or 3 weeks and then we'll get back to normal. Well, now we know that that's not the case, and we don't even know what normal looks like as we start phasing back into whatever that is. And that's probably part of the challenge in looking at how we move forward with this is what does normal look like. But we are dealing with short-term changes and challenges, but we also know that the ripple effects of these will be long-term as well. And if we can recognize that and start planning for that, we can maybe make some better decisions and moves in the short term. I am the biggest fan of our nonprofit community you will ever find. And I am so encouraged by a lot that I see going on in our community to lift up our businesses, to lift up people, to help each other, to be good neighbors. And what I want to do is help be that voice and bring our voice to the table for the value that our nonprofits provide, and remembering that now more than ever, the work of our nonprofits is needed. We're always needed, even in good times, but it's in challenging times that nonprofits are called on to work and to deliver at even higher levels. In times of recession, businesses suffer, nonprofits suffer, but the what it takes to come back, we know historically, when you look back at 2008 and other times in recession, that our nonprofits usually come back. It takes about 1.5 times as long for the nonprofit sector to come back to where it was as it did the business sector. So being aware of that and planning along those timelines can help us again to make better decisions throughout the process. But I would say that nobody is better equipped to work through this than our nonprofit community, and here's why. We are used to challenges and we are used to crises, and that's not a woe as a nonprofit world, it's reality. Many of us serve people in crisis, and when you work with people in crisis, you're accustomed to that mindset. You know what it takes to transition from that, and so we reapply that to our own organizations. We also face crises from time to time that may not be the general economic or societal crisis. We're one grant funding cycle away from most of the time being in crisis mode. A change to grant deliverables or a fundraising event that doesn't materialize or gets canceled, or the state imposing sales tax on events and things. So we are used to working through those. We are used to playing through those scenarios. This is a little bit larger scale and just requires us, you know, to get ready to address that. But we are equipped to tackle and come out on the other end of this, and probably more so than others. So what do we work through, and how do we do this to help support each other? This is where we want to get your input, your suggestions on what is helpful, and talk about some key areas of concern. And so the least noted on our quick pop-up poll at the beginning was talking about staffing and people issues. But I do want to devote just a few minutes to that in case it still is an issue that you want to address, even if it's not your most pressing. So pop any comments or questions you have in the chat there. What challenges are you facing? And if you want to talk, raise your hand, type in the chat, and we can unmute you. We can unmute everyone, but then we may get all of your typing on the keyboards and chatter and kids in the background. But we can unmute you on a one-by-one basis so that you can engage with each other. Are you having issues around staff? keeping staff, working from home policies, sick leave policies, anything in the people realm, HR issues, unemployment, challenges around what level of staffing you can keep. Our biggest challenge from Julian is trying to push our agency to go to telehealth remote options while not having policy platforms in place. Is that a challenge, Julian, from, Julian, can you talk some more about that?
Sure. One of our goals was to move to a telehealth option for service provision because we serve 8 counties. And I'd actually already started researching and looking into options to do that with the thought in mind that I would have a few months to get things in order. And I literally had a meeting 2 weeks before this whole COVID thing burst wide open. And so I'm thankful that I had a little bit of research under me to get things in place, but it's also like I'm kind of trying to catch up with myself. So we got telehealth rolled out and we got consent forms rolled out. That was great. But now logistically, it's, you know, we're providing service where we need forms signed. And we typically do that in person. And so if somebody wants to receive services from us, we need consent to do that. So now I'm rapidly trying to figure out what's a platform like DocuSign that I can get in place when this other part is already up and running. So it's like I keep kind of chasing it's not that I'm chasing my tail, but it's like one success brings on like 7 other things I didn't think about. Yeah.
So do you have any legal issues that you're trying to grapple with around providing telehealth, or funder issues, or is it the internal processes and execution?
I mean, I think it's internal processes. I know I might be in a different scenario because I have coalitions. So I have state level coalition supports. So I'm not the only director that's dealing with this in my work area. So I've got lots of counterparts. And then we have a couple board members that are lawyers. So that helps make sure that I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do that's legal, and in the right format. So I think it's just more of, I'm such a planner by personality that this whole situation has caused so much flexibility and thinking outside of the box that normally I would take that time to lay out, like, this is what we need to do first and second and third. And so right now I feel like I'm on item 27 and then I'm on item 3 and then I'm item, it's just what it feels like.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like the plan may not be going in the order you want it, but you're, sounds like a step ahead of a lot in getting it executed though.
We're trying, we're rapidly trying, but we want to make sure that none of our victims or survivors are without resources right now. So it's trying to keep them informed and trying to keep things in place to support them.
Other issues from people around, or from you all about people and staffing? Okay, question here. Can you tell me how unemployment affects a nonprofit? Does it hurt the agency financially? Not sure if this is an okay question. It's absolutely an okay question. And I have a question. So Margaret, is that Emily? No. No? Margaret? Okay. So I'm trying to get my names and faces with who I'm talking to. I've got some of you on face and some of you not. So nonprofits in Kentucky can elect to participate in the state unemployment system, or they can opt out if they have 4 or fewer employees, or they can do a private pay unemployment program as well. So depending on what your organization has opted to do, there are some very real ramifications on that. So typically the thought was nonprofits could choose to self-insure, and then if they didn't participate in the state system, somebody quit and they had to pay out that unemployment, or somebody was separated from employment and they needed to pay that out, then they would just be billed by the state for that. And that was sort of dice nonprofit were willing to roll on the chance that that happened, but it usually saved them money in the long run. But now, as some nonprofits are laying off folks, and some are looking at closing their doors, and some already have closed their doors even just in the last week, that becomes a little bit of a different scenario, more of a substantial scenario than what that opting out was sort of designed around. So that's sort of an overall state of nonprofit unemployment in Kentucky. There is a piece of the proposed provision that would create some relief for that, but that has not been voted on unless it's happened today. So bear with me that things are changing throughout the day. But when I checked this morning, that had not been addressed. Do you have, Margaret, do you have specific questions about your situation around unemployment that that I might could help with? You're unmuted if you'd like to talk. So unemployment is a big concern for our nonprofits. I think it will be something that nonprofits look at differently than we have in the past in terms of making those decisions. Anything else on people or unemployment? I think Margaret's trying to figure out how to unmute, so we can always come back to her if she gets it.
Margaret, try your computer. It might be in your settings for your microphone.
We'll move on and we can come back to anything else that we want to. Let's talk about financials. That was our second most concern in the pop-up poll we did at the beginning, looking at things around budgeting, adjusting your budget, looking at service deliverables and how your budget's going to be impacted now rather than later, fundraising and donor issues, but financials from a short-term perspective, but also a long-term perspective. And I know this can get, personal or things that you may be uncomfortable sharing. I want to share whatever you feel like, but we know that the financial picture is an important piece of this for all of our organizations. So fundraising events have been canceled, issues coming up, concerns about donors' ability to give, and they've all watched their stock market portfolios take a hit, what that does for us collectively as a sector. So talk about what concerns you have in that regard, either in the chat or give a signal, we'll get you unmuted. A couple of questions coming in here. So budgets, talking about budgets. Somebody sent something about budget. Your board passed a budget. Your board can amend the budget. The budget is your guideline for the year, but it's just that. It does not mean that that's actually what's going to happen. We all know that. So engage your board. Make sure that you are taking a look at this financial situation, not just today, but those projections, what you see coming down the pike this year that may affect that budget. They can do budget modifications at any point. Know what your parameters are within your board's infrastructure to affect what you can and can't do as staff with or without their approval, so that you can adjust quickly. and make those changes. Anything else on financials, fundraising? Who's got fundraising events in the next 2 or 3 months that you're making decisions on? Anybody looking at trying to take it from an in-person event to a virtual event? Postponed? Tough decisions. So some are looking at postponing events, others are, you know, if it's something very time sensitive, there's no way to, you know, to make that adjustment, or trying to do a virtual event. There are some platforms out there to do virtual auctions instead of an in-person silent auction or bidding auction. Several different platforms out there that can help do those. Looking at how we sort of harness this opportunity. What can you do differently from a fundraising standpoint? We have an event scheduled for the end of April. It's not a fundraising event, so I'll put that out there. It's different, but we're looking at how to do that virtually. We're not going to be able to bring 350 people into a room to give out scholarships. Whatever level of back to normal looks like by the end of April, we know that people aren't going to be comfortable walking into an optional group of 350 people in that exposure, even if we kicked it out a couple more weeks. So we're looking at how to do that virtually so that we can still give those scholarship recipients a way to have that experience. So one thing I think this is doing is challenges to get creative and look at new ways, different ways to do things, get a little innovative on that. We will be adjusting from this financial picture for quite a while. Whether we're still able to have fundraising events by later in the year, but do they look the same? Do they have the same return? How are we impacted by that? And how do we get the message out to folks that our nonprofits are still providing vital work and not on, you know, shut down and just kick back and wait for things to get back to normal. The third area I want to spend a little time talking about is resources. And this is where I'd really like for us to share those ideas, share what you're finding that's working, share what areas you still need help finding options for. We've all sort of had to grapple with what's the best way to communicate, what's the best way to meet, to connect. So what are those resources that you need? What are those things you're still struggling with that somebody else may have the answer to that we can help learn from each other? Is it technology assistance? Is it financial? Is it grants? What are you looking for help with that somebody else might can provide that connection point for you?
We'll be happy to just type on mute if you'd like to speak, and we'll be happy to get you off mute so that you can share.
Who's suffering from feeling disconnected? Anybody? Teresa, me. I knew you would be. Anybody happy? An introverted person happy to be in their own little world for a little bit? We've been having a lot of virtual meetings too, and I know that provides some connectivity, but it's different. It's not quite the same. I think having the video piece, and I would have thought I would have been the last person to ever think that was cool. I think the video piece is now at about day 10 a welcome piece of connectivity, whereas before I was always happy to be the one that did not have a camera on my computer. But as we look at how we do these to stay connected, how are you staying connected to your board, to your volunteers, to your donors? Have your donors heard from you yet? Have your funders heard from you yet? If you get grant funding, have they heard from you? Have you heard from them? Making sure that those folks are hearing your story, how you're impacted, how you're making the turn to to still deliver the services that they support you in, and what your reality is, what you need from them. Having volunteers call to check in on each other, that's great. The idea of contacting donors, yes. So communication is so important, but what's the right way to do that? And that looks different across different audiences. We would never try to do a Zoom meeting with our donors. Our average donor age is over 70. Not saying that some of them wouldn't, but most would probably not. A Zoom meeting can hopefully work in this professional environment for some, but maybe not even to all. Video calls have been great. Send out emails almost every other day about service changes to our donors, social media. And so I think that feeling of connectivity comes in different ways with your different audiences, but it's so important, that reassurance that it can give folks, and that connectivity. Needs you have to be able to support that communication. People still struggling through what those channels may look like, or best options. If anybody's got some great tool you've come across, what's the best email blast server, or if you like another platform besides Zoom, feel free to share those in the chat.
That's a good point, Nicole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot over 70 are connected with Zoom, and several are using FaceTime and other platforms as well. We suffer from several who still have flip phones, so recognizing the broad base of that group is hard to segment. Great shout outs there for what some of you all are doing. Share those things that work well. And if you've used platforms or tried things that didn't work so well, share those as well to help save others the frustration. So a couple of resources that I want to share too, and I intended to mention this one at the beginning of the call, and got sidetracked with our sound issues. One resource is the Small Business Administration does have a loan program out for small businesses, but it includes nonprofits as well. So there is a loan program available. It is a loan, not a grant, not a forgiveness program at this point, although they are saying there's a chance that could happen. I don't say that in any way encouraging you to do it, assuming that will happen. But there's a webinar at 3 o'clock today, and so we are going to wrap up just shy of 3 o'clock for sure, if not before. So if anybody wants to participate in the Kentucky Nonprofit Network's webinar on the Small Business Association loan program, you can do that. Gina's going to put in the chat window the hyperlink for that webinar if you want to be able to check in and just get some information on that. It is not an easy process, and I don't say that to discourage you at all. It is about a 20-page application. It is set up for businesses, not for nonprofits. So you start on it, it asks for the business owner's social security number, not the organization's EIN. And so they're still working through some of those things because, again, what we always know is that not all of our officials making these decisions and putting these things in place understand how a nonprofit works. But know that you can hop on that webinar. They will be able to answer all the questions that they can answer. Some of those things are still fluid and changing as we go. So Small Business Association loans that are available to nonprofits, but again, they will have to be repaid. So I had a question the other day going, I don't know that we can apply for that because I don't know when we would have the funding to repay it. That's a vital decision of your board to make. Applying for the funds, though, does not obligate you to take them. You can apply, get in the process, see what those terms look like, see what your organization's status looks like at that point, and then make a decision whether or not to take the funds. Another thing I want to share is that, sorry for my paper rattling there. Some of you are participating in Kentucky Gives Day, and today's town hall is not meant to be a promotion for that. But We had a call this morning related to Kentucky Gives Day, and we are going to go ahead and open up Kentucky Gives Day's online giving platform on April 1. So those gifts between now and May 12th won't count for the prize pools and things, but we also know that the prize pool isn't necessarily why so many of you all do Kentucky Gives Day. But if you need a platform to push fundraising now and get dollars in now and give people a way to give online, I think most organizations have that online platform aside from Kentucky Gives Day, but if you don't and you want to make use of this, we saw no reason not to go ahead and open that up. And if that's a valuable resource for some organizations, go ahead and start pushing that. We just made that decision a couple of hours ago, so we'll be getting that information out formally, and they'll be getting the platform opened up by April 1 for sure. So that's an option for you. There is a webinar hosted by GiveGab and the Kentucky Nonprofit Network on March 27th at 2 p.m. It is Strategies for Impactful Giving Day during COVID-19. So it's going to talk some about the challenges of raising money in a crisis and ways to be thoughtful and acknowledging the current situation people are in while still telling your story about what you have to offer. Even if you're not sure if you're doing Kentucky Gives Day, it could have valuable fundraising information in it for you during this time, aside from Kentucky Gives Day. So I'm probably not supposed to say that, but anybody can sit in on the webinar, and it may be helpful to you as well. There are grants out there from organizations right now from funders out there for organizations to be able to sustain their work during this COVID-19 crisis. Look for those. I found 2 or 3 just quickly today. Dunkin' Donuts has one out. There are some of our organizations that serve in the Louisville metro area, and there's going to be some grant funding coming out of that collective Louisville Impact Fund as well. So look at those. There's been a collective effort among funders to try to make those simple to get out. I know they pushed out a thing we signed on just to be flexible in our funding and ease of application for any emergency relief funds that are going out. So a lot of those are meant to just be like a quick 1-page, here's our situation, here's our legitimate business EIN number, we exist, here's what we want to do with the money, kind of quick process. So look for those. A lot of them are going to be focused more in the human services field, but not all of them are. Some of them are broader. I wouldn't take whatever time you have. I know everyone's time is at a premium right now, but do keep your eyes open for those that may be applicable. And some funders are loosening the restrictions on what has been normal funding for specific areas and making it broader for general operations. And so that could open you up to funders that you may not have fit their criteria before. So don't look past those that you may have thought, oh, well, they say they only are interested in applications in these certain fields of work. So keep an eye out for those. I see you all have done some sharing of information there in the chat. Thanks so much for all of those. Zoom has opened up and made their free version, expanded those resources as well. Google Hangouts that a lot of us are using. I think Microsoft Teams has done something similar as well that I saw earlier today. So we've been mostly using Zoom, as I think several of you have. I've been on a couple with GoToMeeting and other things as well. So we don't know when things will be back to an in-person format any more than you all do. But what I want to hear from you all is what do you need? What can we do as a collective nonprofit community that helps you and helps us all through this time? We want to be of value. If there's ways we can help share resources amongst you or get information out, we're glad to do that. But we never want to be just another thing on your calendar or something in your inbox. So is something similar to this valuable again down the road, or is there another method or other things we can do? we're getting some feedback here. We've also got a couple of other people that could be on the call that shared some information. So we may send out just a quick thing after this with a link, with some of the links that we've shared today, so that you have them in an email and some resources, as well as just to get your feedback on if we did this again in a week or a couple weeks, or what that might look like for you. Because again, we want it to be useful and helpful, but we also know that we're in this for not just a couple weeks, for the long haul. With that, we've wrapped up everything I had to cover, but anything anybody wants to send out in the chat, last comments, questions, words to the wise, encouragement, support. I said on a call Monday that why I enjoy nonprofit work, and that was each one of you all, because I feel like I get the best of all the worlds. I get to see and enjoy the work that each one of you all do in your different areas, and that's what gives me so much satisfaction. So I thank you for all that you do, and I know everybody's pulling long hours and really stretching your brain to figure out how to do things that you thought you were going to be planning for several months to deliver in a different format, like Jillian talked about, and now you're doing them in a couple weeks. So that's huge kudos, and I think speaks so much to the strength of our sector. With that, I'll sign off and say thanks, everybody.